Okay, well, welcome in to our viewers and our listeners. And today we are joined by the one and only Baron Baptiste. Baron, thank you so much for your time today. It's such a pleasure and an honor to get to speak with you.
Yeah, and likewise to you, Sonia. Really great to be here.
I want to know, first of all, how you're doing today, how you're doing in this moment in time. We're at a very interesting intersection of time and space, current events, and just life feels like it's moving super fast. I've never had the chance to talk to you directly, so I'm just wondering how you're doing in this moment.
Thank you for asking. I am doing actually fantastic. And I'll say that from the standpoint of my mind, my body. Like, I feel really whole and complete in myself. And to your point, like, the world is so disturbed right now. There's so much stress, anxious, fear energy. And so I really look to my own practices like daily. And that I think is what gives me the ability to say I'm doing fantastic, is really being in the practice, finding my own grounding points. If I'm feeling a little off center, I wake up feeling off center. I'm pretty disciplined about, okay, Baron, you're off center. You need to get into your rituals, stay in the practices, get grounded, locate center like that. And it's been very active, ongoing, daily, consistently, that my practices are a source for me of grounding, of well-being, and a sense of just clarity in life, regardless of what's going on in the world, regardless of what's going on in my circumstances, that I stand in the center of things in a calm way that keeps me alive and engaged in what's important to me in life. Yeah.
So, what is a ritual for you that is grounding or centering? Like, what is something that you really lean on? Is there a specific movement practice, a specific meditation practice, or is it, being in the mountains, or what does it look like for you? What helps you get back to that center point?
Yeah, yeah, good question. It's probably four key things. If I look at it like that, it's asana practice, if having a physical practice where I get on the mat and I move, breathe, move energy out, locate my center, locate my bones, get into my feet. So a physical practice, a meditation practice where I just sit, be still, be with whatever's going on with me emotionally, body sensations, whatever's going on in my thoughts, to meditate and just get present to that quiet, still, small voice, of truth within myself. The third thing is inquiry. I do daily inquiry, whether that's journaling, and I do journal almost daily, not always journaling, but I'm always like present to just an inquiry, discovering something about myself, discovering how, I'm showing up in my relationships, in my interactions with people, how I'm showing up for myself, and in alignment with what's important to me and also my calling in life. And then the fourth is getting out in nature. Just, at least two, three, if I can, every day, get out in nature in some capacity, whether that's hiking, walking, I love water, getting out in water. This weekend I was in hot springs, if I can get to the ocean, but getting outside in the elements, getting sunlight in my eyes every morning, even just for like 3 or 5 minutes, I'll try to get outside and just get sunlight into my eyes. I have a cold plunge, so I'll do that several times a week. If I need a jolt and a brain reset, I cold plunge, and that's like wake up call. So yeah, like that.
Okay, so you and I sound like we have a lot of the same practices. Are you a big biohacker?
No, I wouldn't say I am, but it's interesting to me, a lot of that work.
Okay, so let's like rewind time a little bit,
Okay.
because something that I didn't tell you before we started recording is that Baptiste Yoga was really my foundation for practice, which was okay, I'm just going to say 20 years ago. Tell me, if you could rewind time, like, what was your life like 20 years ago? Because I remember from my
Yeah.
perspective what I saw, and it felt to me as a student larger than life.
It's interesting. So yeah, to back up, to rewind 20 years ago, and maybe even a little before that, I started, teaching in Los Angeles and kind of coined power yoga. I was looking at a way to make yoga practice and the physical, like vinyasa practice, accessible to people, people from all walks of life, beyond just, the traditional practices of yoga, which I'm steeped in and trained in and educated in. But I was like, I want to make this available to everyone from every walk. And so I was teaching in Los Angeles, and my classes in Hollywood just blew up. Like people just came in mass, and I was like, wow, there's something here. And then I was given an opportunity to join the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles. So the NFL, Philadelphia Eagles staff, the coaching staff. I did that. I moved to Philadelphia, left Los Angeles, opened a studio in Philly, and then was there training the athletes, the NFL, the Eagles players. And I did that for 5 or 6 years. And then I moved to Boston, started a studio in Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts. And again, was just teaching there. Yoga was pretty new there. There were some old school teachers there, but mostly what I did was brand new in Boston. And within like 6 months, it just blew up out of the stratosphere. Like people were just lining up for classes. Every class was sold out. And then from there, like I had some opportunities open up to probably 20 years ago, what you're pointing to. I released my first book, Journey into Power. And that kind of put things out, into the bigger stratosphere of the US and then even globally. I think that book is now in multiple languages. But I think with that, then, there was a lot of media and different focus on yoga was becoming popular at a time that people were catching on to my practice. So yoga in general was becoming more accepted culturally. It wasn't just like this weird thing you did, or you had to go join a monastery or be able to tie yourself up into a pretzel. It was starting to get recognized more in the just mainstream as a practice, like something that can really support you in your body, mind, and an integrative practice that was more than just a physical like workout. So yeah, and things from there, I started doing teacher trainings in the early 2000s. I think I did my very first one in 1999. And from there, it just, I wanted to create a methodology, and I created a methodology, but I wanted to create it in a way where others could lead it. And I think that's where the teacher trainings, we have like a level 1 teacher training, a level 2, and we have some upper level teacher development trainings. But really the intention there was that, okay, maybe I'm the source of something like the genesis, but I wanted to create the methodology so anyone could go and teach that, share the practice for themselves in their own voice and in their own kind of natural self-expression. So it wasn't just scripted, but it was something that anyone could learn and get trained in, and then could go on and open their own studios or get certified and become a teacher in their local studios or gyms or like that. And kind of the rest is history. It blew up into Baptiste Yoga, really just kind of blew up globally and became really a practice that a lot of people have come to appreciate and practice over many years. And a lot of people like yourself, it's where they got started, or Baptiste Yoga had an impact on them that stayed with them, and they brought it into their journey in some way, shape, or form.
It's incredible because I wonder, did you have a business mindset? Did you have business mentors? And I'm going to ask you about your parents and their yoga background as well, but how did you know where to go in terms of direction? Or did it all just come to you because the practice itself, like you were mentioning, was gaining popularity? Were you there in the right space at the right time? Or did you really fight and go after it? Things that I think teachers, even nowadays, are like, well, how do I up level to what that was or is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. No, I'm not a business guy, and I wasn't. I've learned about business, and, I knew I was an entrepreneur working on my own, but I really didn't have like education in running a business. It was really off the ground. But what I kind of realized at a certain point, well, I love teaching. I love leading practices. I love leading groups and trainings, teacher trainings and development. And I kind of figured out, well, if I want to do what I love to do, I have to get just good enough at business because business is the container. It's like the platform from which you get to do what you love to do. So I started learning the basics around business. But I think where, like we never, like in Baptiste Yoga or myself early on, the Baptiste Institute, we've never really marketed what we do. It was really that, I was always more about attraction rather than promotion. And I think the power of the practice and the Baptiste methodologies we would teach it, the power of it would just impact people and create such profound results that people would just go share it with others. And then it kind of worked like that. It was all just word of mouth mostly. I think it just came down to the product was so good that it took on a life of its own. It didn't need a lot of selling or marketing. It was just, and I was always clear, maybe it's not for everyone, but it's for anyone who relates to our kind of approach to yoga practice and becoming a leader in your life and, wanting to have your own kind of growth and transformations through the practice and then share that with others. I think it just kind of spoke for itself and took on a life of its own. Yeah.
I agree. And I think what's so impressive about that is that this was a time before social media, really. You didn't have
Hmm.
Instagram.
Yeah.
You weren't trying to get Insta famous. You weren't, posting reels and sharing Facebook posts and
Yeah.
things like, I mean, this is way before that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
it to have that type of organic growth is incredible. And I'm wondering how you came into sort of the lineage, the ideas, the thread that you ended up sharing. You started the practice of yoga really young, 12 years old, and at the influence of your parents.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're correct. And really, I have photos of me when I was like 3 and 4 years old doing asana postures. Interesting. My mother, it was either the San Francisco Chronicle or I think it was the San Francisco Examiner newspaper did a full spread of my mother doing yoga while pregnant. And she was pregnant
Mm,
with me. So I think it's like I was born into it in a sense. It wasn't yoga came into my life not by choice, that's for sure. And then, growing up as a teenager and going through all those different stages and phases of life, at a certain point in my early 20s, like I chose it. Like, this is like got such value no matter what I want to do in my life, whoever I want to be or become. These are practices that really have value for me personally. And then organically, it kind of grew into, I started teaching in LA. I think to come back to your question, my parents opened the first yoga center in San Francisco in the early 1950s. My father was
mm.
like an early Mr. America bodybuilder. He was very into physical culture and health and alternative ways of thinking. And then my father's father was very much into metaphysics and yoga and things like that. And I think that influenced my father, his thinking. And then my mother, when they met, my mother just took it on full on and became a pretty amazing yogi and teacher. So my parents created this center in San Francisco where it was a hub. It had a health food restaurant. It had full yoga center, dance center, and it was very like holistic body, mind, and spirit. And they were really my primary influence when I was 16 or 17 years old. My parents were invited to a dinner with BKS Iyengar in San Francisco. Mr. Iyengar was in town to, I think he was leading like an immersion for his teachers, Iyengar teachers. And so we went to this dinner party and with Iyengar, I got to meet him. And then as we're all like lining up, leaving the dinner party, everyone's like lining up just to acknowledge Mr. Iyengar and give him a salutation. And when we're walking, I acknowledged him, just kind of like everyone else was doing. And then I was walking away, and he called me back, and he said to me, "You're a yogi." And I said, "Well, I try to be," or something like that. And he said, "Come to my immersion tomorrow. Come to my immersion." And again, I was maybe 16, 17 years old. And I went to his immersion, and that like struck a chord in me for like the deep, like physical practice, the alignment and the precision and the kind of rigor to detail and the pranayama. And that really started me out into a new path of really exploring asana in a new way. It was a part of my parents' work, but they weren't into the physical precision of the asanas. And as a very athletic, I was a surfer, I was a martial artist. So I was like an athlete. I really connected to the intensity of the physical practice. And so that first kind of meeting of Iyengar, I think really put in me, it lit a fire, a flame that kept me on a track there to keep exploring, the practice of asana.
That is so cool. I mean, just I can only imagine what it would be like to be at a dinner event or any sort of function with BKS Iyengar, and then he calls you over and invites you to an immersion. I mean, wow, what a story. And then that's your inspiration. Do you see yourself now as that same type of inspiration for so many teachers across not just America, but the world?
That's a good question. I think I have always looked to separate, the man from the message, so to speak, or the person from the method. So I think what I've seen about Baptiste Yoga over like the last 2, 3 decades since it all started is that there's so many people out there who practice Baptiste Yoga or some variation of it or the methodology, and they don't necessarily even know who I am. They know my name, but they don't necessarily know who I am. I think a lot of people maybe train directly with me. If you were to ask them, they would say I'm a source of inspiration for them, and that the programs like a level 1 training had big impact for them and set them on a new trajectory. I kind of, I grew up around the guru world, and my parents, when I was a kid, would, take me to India, and they'd go and study in different ashrams, different teachers. And some part of me was like, I appreciated that, but I was also like, I never actually want to be a guru. I want to influence people. I want to contribute to people in their lives. I want to make a difference for people, but I don't necessarily want to be like the leader or the one that they look to for answers. That's why I think the methodology is really solid and objective, so people can work off the methodology, but they don't need a personality.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and now I'm leaning in because I'm like, well, who are you? You said people don't really know you. And I'm like, what do we not know?
I'm kind of a private person in a lot of ways. I enjoy my own company. I have 3 sons that, I raised as a single parent with their mom. Like we would, divide time but really like most of my time was either my private time when I was home, not traveling on the road, leading programs and trainings. When I was home, I was really with my boys. And I love that first and foremost, probably it was the most fulfilling part of my life. And then that was my foundation. And then I would go out and lead trainings and do events. I was a global ambassador with Lululemon for like 12 years. I think I was like their first global ambassador. So they would send me around the world to unroll the Lululemon brand. I'd meet great, amazing people all over the world. And then I would travel for Baptiste Yoga programs. But my life was pretty simple in a way. I was really just doing programs and trainings. And then at home, I just had my like sanctuary, my space with my kids. And it was kind of simple like that.
Do you feel like things are harder in a sense now for people who are doing something similar, or even for you, where you're constantly kind of trying to navigate the balance between these two worlds, family, home, being steady and sort of in that routine that you described early on, and then also being out in the world and staying supple in the body and creative in the mind and continuing to lead and teach and educate a lot of people?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. I think is it harder? I'm not sure. It's definitely different. Like since COVID, the world has changed and so much has just moved to online. And then with that, there's so much noise out there. It's just so much pulling on people's attention. And so if you're providing a product or a program, it takes something more now to cut through all the noise and especially if you have something that is really of value, you want to get that out to people. It will make a difference for them. First, I've had to learn how to design my life. Like how much travel do I want to do that works in with the big picture of my life? So what's important to me is I have time at home for my own stay in my own rituals, my own practices, those things that refuel, recharge, regenerate me, and then consciously, intentionally go out into the world, lead programs. Leading online allows me to be home and lead from home, which keeps me in my everyday practices and rituals. And then I get to connect with amazing people from all over the world. I think the one last thing I'll add is living, for me, the biggest challenge is relating so much to a computer or devices like we're doing right now. Like, I love it when I'm actually connecting with someone like you. And then also just more being on the screen so much more, where I really thrive is when I can be with people in person. That's where the energy, that's where the real juice is. But it's amazing to see what can get accomplished online too. We have an online level 1 training. It's called Journey to Power Level 1. And I'm always blown away how at the end of that program, the results that people receive, like online, if you would have asked me before COVID, could you lead a level 1 Journey to Power program online? I'd be like, no, that's not even possible. But it's really been amazing to see, to recognize the value that in what you can accomplish online. So big picture, it's like designing my life in a way that works for everything. My family, time that I so value with my kids. I have 2 little grandkids. So, and then taking care of myself, family, and then kind of expanding out into the world from that center.
With regard to your program, how did you move in your mind and also physically? How did you move from that in-person to online?
Well, I'll say that was probably a silver lining in COVID, because what happened in 2020 when the world shut down is we had programs. We had level 1 trainings. We have a training called Fit to Lead, scheduled in person. Level 2, we had a level 2 training, and people were already signed up. Those programs are already full. Some were sold out. And we had to pivot to online, and people were trapped at home during COVID. And people wanted the connection. They wanted the community. They seemed more hungry for that than ever during COVID. And so I think the pivot was a force. Like, we couldn't do the in-person. That got shut down, not by choice. It was like forced quit. And then the pivot we got on Zoom initially, and then just made it work. And it really worked for people, in a way that I was very surprised. Yeah, great, like really amazing results. But yeah, it was probably left to my own. I don't know that I would have ever made that jump from an in-person training like that to online. Yeah.
So did someone convince you? Was there like a business, or a team that was like, look, you got to do this?
Yes, probably the team of people, my team, or the team around me, and then the 100 people that were signed up for that level 1 program. I'm very committed to people have, registered or signed up for a program. I'm committed to delivering the results for them. So it was like, okay, Baron, it's game on. Got to figure this out, got to pivot, and we're going to make it work and make it happen in a really great way. Yeah.
I love that. You recently have joined the American Yoga Council. Your programs are accredited. And I'm wondering why you chose to come on board at AYC. What do you find is the value of being part of an organization that unites yoga in this way?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was introduced to American Yoga Council and told, I had a meeting with the team there, and I was really impressed with just the integrity piece around, there are different styles of yoga. There's Baptiste Yoga, there's Kundalini, there's Iyengar, there are many, so many Ashtanga, there's so many different styles, but how each style, each method was honored, and there was integrity around, if you do a Baptiste training, here's the criteria, here are the prerequisites, here are the requirements that make it a valid training so that you can get accredited, like through American Yoga Council. I think I've always been a bit resistant to some of the other organizations out there that to me felt like a melting pot. Like, it didn't really matter what someone did, whether it was a Baptiste training or say an Ashtanga or a Kundalini training. It was all kind of blended in. There wasn't like a kind of dedicated way of looking at a lineage and a style and kind of honoring that body of work specifically. And so I think American Yoga Council, they've really kind of done their homework. They know what wasn't working in a lot of the other organizations. But this is exactly what has been missing for me and really what I see has value.
Part of what drew me to AYC initially was the honoring of the lineage, for sure, in concert with this idea of mentorship and business coaching, because everything that you've talked about, from writing a book to creating programs to getting them accredited to leading trainings and workshops all over the world, right? That takes a lot of behind the scenes work. And I felt, as a young teacher growing up in the world of yoga, that number one, we sort of lacked support at a certain time and place. We're like, what, how do we do this? Where do we do that? And a lot of our teachers were doing so well that they didn't really have the capacity to go, here, let me help you, because they're doing their own thing. What would you say now to younger teachers who are looking to be, in the same train as Baron Baptiste, and they're looking at you going, man, how did that guy do what he did? I want to do something similar. I'm so inspired. What do you say to those teachers?
Yeah. Well, firstly, trust yourself and having the confidence in yourself and confidence in what you provide, knowing that what you provide really serves people, serves the highest in people, makes a difference for people in real ways. And you really need to stand in that, like your confidence, because when you have confidence in what you provide, it will breed confidence in others. So I think that's an essential starting point. The second starting point is in that confidence is act on it. So if there's a program you want to lead, a retreat, a training, a workshop, the only way to expand and grow is by doing those things and learning by doing. The third part is I've had to really get good with failing. You put yourself out there, you do something, you test something, and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work at the level that you would like. And then I've had to learn how to take the lessons, extract the gold from that, even what did not work, take the gold and then just leave all the rest behind and shake the dust off my feet, take that gold and apply it to the next thing I'm doing. The default would be things didn't go well that first retreat, or things didn't work out in that first workshop or program. But if you can kind of create it that you're going to learn from this, and then you don't quit, and you have that mindset, if I don't quit, I can't fail. It's really true. I mean, if you just keep doing it and you have the confidence in it, people will start showing up. And there's that saying, when the teacher is ready, the students will appear. And I think whatever level you're at, you're a new teacher, you're ready because you're doing it already, and just keep growing. And the way to grow is by doing it, learning the lessons at each step that need to be learned, and keep bringing that forward into the world, and it catches on. And suddenly you're like, wow, I can't believe people are coming to my programs or my classes, but it's because you kept showing up.
Only because you mentioned failure, I'm wondering, do you look back and wish you would have done something or anything differently?
My gosh, I could not even probably create lists and lists and lists of all the things that I could have done differently. So there's all that learning. But yeah, I could look back at all the things that didn't work, or things we did that didn't work at the level they could. But I can also look back and see, wow, we really stayed in and kept evolving, kept improving, refining what we were doing. And that's how you get to more of a final product, so to speak. Not final, like it's still not evolving, but you get a product that is solid and that people can trust in, and it's got credibility, and it really works in creating profound results for people. Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about the yoga world right now? And what do you find to be the most challenging part about the yoga world right now?
It has changed so much. I think my favorite thing about it right now is that it's needed. Yoga practice is really needed, again, in a world that's very disturbed. There's a lot of upset energy. People are needing grounding. And I think through yoga practice and what's happening out in the yoga world is there's a lot of practices. There's a lot of classes more than ever in gyms, studios. There's like a lot of offerings. And I think that really serves something in humanity, in communities, and in individuals. It's really needed and wanted. And a lot of most people out there don't even know that yoga could make a difference. But the more it's out there and people have the chance to experience it, it turns a light on and they're like, well, I didn't even know I needed and wanted this, but like, this is like a powerful source for me to live from. I think the most challenging part is it's become very diluted, the yoga practice. It's lost depth and substance and even lineage and the source, like where does all this come from and what a yoga practice can offer. There's a lot. I think there's been so many iterations now of teacher trainings everywhere, like everyone and their grandmothers doing teacher trainings. Great. But it also has gotten more diluted where a lot of that substance and depth has been lost. So I think it's good. It's got the positive and the side that something's missing
How do
generally.
we how do we rein it in? How do we get it back?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm someone who I would always go back to my source teachers,
Mm.
Iyengar. I'll still practice Iyengar in my own practice. I combine, part of Baptiste methodology is something we call true north alignment. They're made up of principles, organizing principles of true north alignment in the body. And then you apply those to mind, body, being, and you apply them to your life. But those principles are grounded in what I learned from BKS Iyengar, a lot of that. And I think it's for me, coming back to the source, those teachers, leaders, mentors that are at the source of work gives you a whole other understanding and depth of what you're doing. So I would always point people to that. I think, in Baptiste Yoga, I'm kind of a genesis of something, Baptiste Institute, Baptiste Yoga. So when I'm leading a training, I'm present to, people are studying with me. They're coming kind of to the source. And I don't have it like, oh, I'm the source, I'm the big deal. But there is something that this is where it kind of started. It got created here. And so they're hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, or learning and developing like that. And it has an energetic quality and an impact, I think, that's unique. When we go to our source teachers, yeah. Yeah.
I think it's incredible because that's also I have the honor, the pleasure, the privilege of having my source teachers around and you being one
Mm-hmm.
of them, truly. I think that you made yoga accessible and relatable in a way that nothing else at that time did. So I love the point that you're making about being able to still connect to and plug into your source teachers. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
an incredible opportunity that a lot of people might forget because we're teaching and we're teaching and we're teaching and we forget to go back to your
Mm-hmm.
source teachers,
Yeah.
come back to,
Yeah.
in order to come back to yourself, because that was the beginning. I could talk to you forever because this is like a never ending topic for me, yoga and the intersection of where we've been and where we're going. But I am curious to know where you see yourself in 10 or 15 years, where you see Baptiste Yoga, where do you want it to go?
Yeah, yeah, great question. This last year, I've been out. I think I was in 35 cities in the last 12 months around the US and Canada, and 8 or 10 different countries. And when I went out to just be on the road in all these different places and locations and communities, I was blown away how Baptiste yoga specifically, because that's where I tend to go gravitate to, are these Baptiste communities. The work is so alive and well in these communities. It like blows me away. And I think that is when I'm there in those places and teaching in those communities, I'm really present to like legacy. And that legacy is living and breathing and happening right now, not like as some future thing someday, but it's actually legacy is a right here, right now phenomenon. And I just see for however long I'm inspired and pulled toward teaching, I will keep doing that online and in person. And what I know, though, if I were to stop, the legacy and the lineage is carrying on through many other great, great leaders and teachers and studios out there in the world. So, Yeah, like that.
Well, that's a testament to the foundation that you have laid, and I don't say that lightly. I really think that that's not only inspiring, but it's really incredible to be able to look back 20 plus years and say, look at the foundation that I've laid. And I think that a lot of teachers in the yoga world wish that they could do that and hope that they can do that. And so for that, I thank you personally. And on behalf of the American Yoga Council, I just want to thank you so much for your time and for taking some time to share a little bit more about Baptiste Yoga and also the person behind Baptiste Yoga.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really great talking to you. I get your depth and love of yoga practice. So thank you.
I appreciate it.